All right, so in this section, we're going to cover how to create clickable thumbnails super fast. So you're not wasting hours and hours creating these in-depth thumbnails, but at the same time, you can make high quality image thumbnails that are going to increase your click-through rate, which will then get you more views and more watch time on your videos, which ultimately will help you monetize the channel faster. So this entire section is going to be dedicated to creating simple, clickable thumbnails, because ultimately the best two things that you can do to grow your YouTube channel fast is to increase your click-through rate and increase your audience retention. So basically those two things are how many people see your YouTube video and get suggested in it, and how many people click it. For example, if the 100 people are showing your YouTube video, but only 5 people click it, you have a 5% click-through rate, right? If 100 people are showing your video and 20 people click it, you have a 20% click-through rate, okay? So the higher your click-through rate, obviously the more YouTube is gonna suggest that video. And then after that, the longer you can retain your audience. So for example, if your video is 5 minutes long and your audience retention is an average of 2 minutes of that 5 minutes, well, then that portion of the video is how long your audience retention is. For example, on the other hand, if your video is 10 minutes long, but you retain, 8 minutes, your average audience retention is 8 minutes of that 10 minutes, obviously that audience retention on that video is a lot higher. And so the higher your audience retention, the longer you're keeping viewers on YouTube, and YouTube will continue to suggest your video. So always remember the two main things to focus on are click-through rate and audience retention. And this section is going to help you increase your click-through rate by creating better, high quality, more clickable thumbnails. So really quickly, two programs that I recommend for this are both made by Adobe, okay? And that's Photoshop and Lightroom. Now, you can use free programs as well if you'd like. So Canva is an example of a great free option that you can use. But generally, I recommend going with Photoshop and Lightroom. They'll allow you to produce much higher quality thumbnail images, and you'll be developing skills in programs that are super in demand, which obviously is very valuable for you in the future, right? So let's get started, and we'll hop into my computer and start the technical how-to of the training. All right, so I want to run you through a quick 4-step process that's going to allow you to create professional looking thumbnail images over and over again very, very quickly and very, very easily using simply Photoshop and Lightroom and a website here or there, okay? So step 1 is to come up with a main image for your thumbnail that is relevant to your topic or niche, okay? So this could be from a stock photo website like Pexels, for example, or, Pixabay, for example, and there are many others out there. If you just Google stock photo sites, the key here is you want to get a main image. If you're taking an image from the internet, right? You want to get a main image that is not, a copyrighted image or one that the origins of, right? The safest way to do that is to simply go to a stock photo site. Like I said, examples of those are Pexels, Pixabay, and there's a number of others, okay? And this could also simply, if you want to take your own picture, it could simply be a high quality picture that you took yourself with your camera or your phone, okay? The key element here is that you want to get a main background image for your thumbnail so that people that see it immediately, no matter what theme you're going with, will obviously know the topic almost instantaneously, okay? And you can also use a picture of yourself if you're creating, videos or courses around like a personal brand, for example. But I would recommend using an image with a topic. That's just my opinion, but it's a recommendation. Also, because one of the things that I'm going to teach you in a coming lecture is to overlay a picture of yourself on the thumbnail anyway, right? So ideally, it's not going to matter, okay? Now, ideally, with the thumbnail size and the thumbnail image, you're going to want a 1920 by 1080 pixel ratio, or as close to that as possible, so that it resizes easily and looks great, okay? Now, generally speaking, like you can see when you're on one of these sites here, you can see like the up and down photos. Well, a 1080 or a 1920, by 1080p one looks more horizontal like this, right? Almost like a YouTube thumbnail. Now, this one is probably not 1920 by 1080, but if we just simply download this one for free, you will see, right? So it's 1920 by 1280. It also comes a little bit other sizes, but basically I can take this because it's as close to 1920 by 1080 as possible, and then I can simply resize it using step 2. All right, so now that we've actually downloaded our main theme off of a stock photo site, we want to move on to step 2, okay? So step 2 is to simply upload that main image in Adobe Lightroom, okay? So we're going to hit the plus button right here. We're going to grab our main image that we downloaded, and we're going to add one photo, okay? Now, you can also have multiple photos down here in the tray if you're working on multiple photos or you don't want to delete them, but I usually just kind of keep like a clear tray. I delete all the ones I'm not using, okay? Now that we have this main uploaded image in here for our theme and our background, we want to then resize the image using Lightroom so we don't distort the pixel ratio, but we get the right sized image, okay? So what you want to do is you want to come over here to crop and rotate. You're going to click that. Now, if you come to aspect ratio up here, you can obviously input a custom aspect ratio if you ever need to. Although if you look all the way down here, you can see that they just have a preset that's 1920 by 1080, right? So if you just click that, what's going to happen is it's going to give you this little drag bar that lets you see like, okay, everything in this little rectangle right here is 1920 by 1080. So you can obviously drag the photo around to meet that. Now, clearly the left and the right of this photo already match the 1920 by 1080 ratio, right? But sometimes you'll get an image that's bigger on both sides, both width and height, okay? So in that aspect, you can just drag the rectangle around to where you want the picture to be. Now, because the focus of this image is clearly down here, like right off here, and then it slowly gets a little, less and less more like focused as it goes out, I don't want to drag it all the way up to the top, right? I want the main part of the image with the focus down here, okay? So that's what I'm gonna do, and then I simply hit enter, and that's gonna bring that image resized back into Lightroom. You're then going to want to adjust the brightness, the saturation, and a few other things to make the image brighter and to honestly give it more pop, okay? Think about it, right? You want a bright, saturated image that captures eye attention, immediately, especially because you're going to be competing with other images on the screen, and you want people to immediately see yours and have their eyes drawn to you, okay? And that doesn't matter if you're competing on a course site, if you're competing on somewhere like YouTube, if you're simply competing on a social network, it's all about eye traffic and eye attention, okay? And one of the easiest ways and quickest ways too to get this and achieve that result is to simply brighten the image and saturate it, okay? Now, a recommendation quickly before we jump into the side things over here and I show you how I go about doing it and some of the things that you're gonna want to set up as well depending on your image. Obviously, each image is gonna be slightly different when you start. A recommendation is to you don't want to go overboard with this, okay? It can look a little cartoonish if you go overboard. Unless, that's the look that you're going for, then more power to you, okay? So the first thing I'll do, it depends obviously, like I said, on the image that you're grabbing, is I'm gonna increase the contrast a little bit. I like the way that looks. I think it, increases the contrast between the light and the dark colors and the palette a little bit better. Now, if it's a darker image, sometimes if I'm taking like a still frame from a video that I do, what I'll do is I'll improve the highlights or I'll improve. You can also type over here on the sides and type in a number if you ever want to go back to 0 and you're having trouble getting there. Sometimes I'll try to drag it back and it'll end up being like negative, right? So I'm going to make those 0, but sometimes if you ever need to brighten an image up, you can just increase the shadows, you can increase the white, you can increase the highlights and play around with it till it looks a little bit better. But I like the way that this image looks right here, so I'm going to keep it, right? So generally speaking, I usually only do 3 things, and that is increase the contrast, increase the vibrance a little bit, make it more vibrant. See if I just drag it down, how much that increases the vibrance there. You don't want to go too much because then it looks cartoonish and it doesn't look real. But if you just go a little bit, right? Like instead of like 0-ish right here, you just increase it a little bit. It's going to kind of give it a little bit more pop, right? Especially when you add a little bit of saturation there too, right? So that's the way, that's just basically going to add a little bit more brightness, a little bit more saturation, a little bit more vibrance, and a little bit more kind of, attention to the eye when they're scrolling quickly, right? Because you're trying to grab attention almost immediately. It's an attention game against other similar images, okay? This is one of the easiest ways to basically achieve that, okay? Now, some of the things, like I said, those are the main 3 that I always adjust, and I'll adjust them up or down a little bit slightly, never like down this way, but like on the right side of these spectrums, I'll adjust them up and down, according to how the original photo looks. And you can take, a couple minutes and play around with it and try to find, something that's good and looks good for you. Those are the 3 that I always do. Now, every once in a while, like I said, I'll adjust the highlights if it's dark, or the shadows or the whites if it's a dark image, and obviously vice versa if it's a brighter image and you want to darken it a little bit. Every once in a while, I will too if the image isn't very, very clear, and this is obviously a good picture taken from a stock photo site. I'll increase the clarity a little bit every once in a while, or I'll increase the texture if we like undo that, or I'll increase the texture a little bit so you can kind of see like the texture on some of the rocks or whatever the focus is on. I'll do that, but I'm not going to do that for this one. Or I'll even increase the grain sometimes, or if you scroll down a little bit, I'll sharpen it up and I'll reduce the noise. But that's very, very rare. Those are things that you can play around with. But really all you need to know, because this course is obviously how to do it quickly, is all you really need to know is upload your image, resize it using the crop to 1920 by 1080 or whatever, ratio that you need, and then work on the contrast, the vibrance, and the saturation. That's maybe 90 to 95% of the battle with these types of images. So step 3 is to now upload your new version of that background image into Photoshop. Okay, you now have an eye-popping image that will grab attention. It's formatted for most platforms, and now it's time to start adding layers to it. Okay, now the first layer that I like to add to this image myself is literally of myself. Okay, and that's because obviously my content personally revolves around a personal brand. Okay, if yours does as well, then feel free to use this technique. Okay, you can also add a logo, or you can simply just add text and another picture if you want to go that route. Okay, so what you need is a few random pictures of yourself already before doing this, so that you can then either add them or snip them out. I'll show you both of those examples. Okay, so what you can basically do, it's really simple, is just set your phone or your camera up in video mode, then record yourself and make a bunch of gestures or standing poses, and then take snippets or screenshots of that still frame in the video by simply pausing it on that gesture and taking a screenshot or a photo of that. And then you'll use that screenshot here on your actual thumbnail, and you'll pull yourself out of the screenshot like I'm going to show you, to basically personalize your thumbnail image so nobody else can use it, right? It's a really good way and a good technique that you see a lot of personal brands doing. Although, like I said, if you don't have a personal brand, then you can, adjust this and you don't have to use this step, okay? Now, an example of how this will look right here is, you can see with this suit picture, I've already cut myself out. So if I just grab, this is a PNG right here, and this is what I will show you how to do in a second. I can literally just drag myself onto the actual picture, and there I am overlaid on the thumbnail. Okay, now what I recommend that you do in most cases, and obviously I didn't do it here so that I could show you, is you want a bunch of these ahead of time already in PNG mode, so you don't have to do this next step every single time and cut yourself out every single time, right? You want to go through ahead of time, cut yourself out ahead of time, and that way you can simply drag them on, because this is, how to make a professional thumbnail, quickly, right? And 4 easy steps. So, if you do it once, well, then every other thumbnail that you do using that in the future will be a lot shorter, okay? But if you need to know how to do that, basically what you want to do is, you can see the examples of the still frames that I've taken here. So we'll use one that isn't in PNG mode, that we need to take myself and remove myself from the background. So let's use this one right here, this example right here, okay? Now, if you need to maximize the image, you can hold Alt and scroll up on your mouse. If you need to, unmaximize the image, then hold Alt and scroll down on your mouse as well, okay? Now I'm gonna hold Alt and scroll up a little bit, and what I wanna do is I wanna take myself out of the background of this photo so I can overlay myself onto that actual image for our main thumbnail, so I can add it, as a personal brand thing, right? So we want to use the quick select tool, which is right here. So I'm going to click the quick select tool, and you're going to want to make sure that the plus is selected. The minus will take stuff out. The plus will actually select stuff which you want to grab. So I'm literally just going to quick select it all, right? I'm just going to hold down and drag it, and you can see it starts to automatically go around the image that we want selected, okay? Now, it's not always perfect. You can see right here it's selected too much, and we'll go back and take that out here in a second. But basically, you're just going to drag everything around. That's pretty close to what we want, right? So if my ear is missing a little bit here, there's an extra part right here that I don't need, and obviously we need to take this out. But everything else automatically selected pretty well, okay? Now, if you need to actually really do this, you can select the pen tool and just draw a pen around yourself and then select it. But that takes so long. So the quick select tool is a game changer, okay? So now that we selected ourselves, and we need to add a little bit more right here on the ear, so we're just going to drag this down a little bit, and that looks pretty good to me. We want to, hit the minus, because I don't need this little thing right here. So I'm going to click down and just drag over it, and boom. There we go. That's taken out. Now, same thing with here. We want to just kind of click down, and boom, it pretty much grabbed it, okay? Now, you're going to want to, it's going to take you maybe a minute or two to get used to how to do this. You want to click and kind of drag around it, or you can simply just click once, and it'll slowly start taking pieces out. And then obviously if you take too much out, you can just go back and hit the plus and reselect more, okay? But now once you have the image pretty much selected like this, you're going to want to click select subject and then hit okay. And it's going to select the subject right here, and then you want to go over to this image right here, the move tool. And that's going to actually select your image, okay? So now it's in PNG. You can see if you drag it around, it literally took you out of the background. But what we want to do is we want to drag this entire layer over like it was like a web page file. And then I'm going to drag myself over on top of the thumbnail image, okay? Now you're going to X out of this one right here, and you're simply going to increase, and drag yourself wherever you want in the thumbnail image. But that's pretty much how you do that. Now, assuming that you've done this, right, and you drag yourself over the background and place yourself where you want, right? Now you want to adjust the size and the portion accordingly. Pretty self-explanatory. I also recommend personally adding like a shadow effect and a background effect to this as well, okay? Now, some people also add a light halo effect around their picture. You'll see that a lot on YouTube thumbnails. I've kind of moved away from that because I think it looks a little cartoonish, and I don't necessarily recommend that you do that. So to do that, you want to right click on the layer over here on the actual timeline right here, and you're going to go to blending options. Now, if you do want the outer glow, you can click outer glow right here, and then you can simply drag the fill of it, how wide it is, open if you want to add that. You can also adjust the color if you want to do that as well. Like I said, I don't ever really do that. And if you click outer glow off, then it'll basically go off, right? All I really do, and it's going to be tough to kind of see it with this image because it's a little bit of a darker image, but you can see it a lot better on a lot of images, and it's really going to bring me to the forefront here in a second, is the drop shadow, right? See how kind of adds the shadow right there on the back? Now, if I unselect that, you're going to see that shadow disappear, and that's going to add the shadow, okay? It's subtle, and obviously same thing here. You can adjust the size of the shadow if you want to, or move it around, as you see fit. And then you're going to hit OK. Now you'll see that that really kind of brings me to the forefront of this, and you'll see the shadow behind, and it really kind of separates the layers a little bit better. I really like the way that that looks. Okay, so I'm going to drag myself right here. I'll make myself a little bit bigger, and we'll keep it like that. Now, obviously, this is going to be an example thumbnail picture, for, let's hypothetically say it's like a travel photography course, okay? So what I need to do is I need to obviously add text to that to identify that it's travel photography, or if it was a travel photography thumbnail for a video that I was doing for, say, on YouTube, for example, right? But now my personal brand image is in there, and now I want to move on to adding text. So step 4 is to add text and, or a logo if that applies to you as well, right? So if you already have your personal brand, then that's great. You can see I've drug mine over a little bit. It's a little bit more to the middle. I'm going to add the text up here a little bit. I think it'll kind of look a little bit better. Now, if you don't have this, then just add a logo or another picture and text originally, and you'll also want to focus a little bit more on the background image. Now, if you do have yourself and you are putting yourself and text in the image, then obviously you just want a theme in your background image, because the main theme is going to be your personal brand, what the topic is, and then just, an attention-grabbing text overlay, okay? So you want to add text and position it accordingly, and that's important, okay? Then you want to bring that text to life and, to the forefront, okay? Now, I recommend adding a rectangle background. I'll show you how to actually do that here in a second, so that the text is clear to see, and then bringing it to life. Now, you don't need to add a rectangle background. You can just add the same, like let's hypothetically say, I'll show you what to do. So let's go over the text. And I said, for example, this is going to be like a travel photography thumbnail. So let's just say like travel photography, and then I'm going to hit this thing so I can move it around and adjust it. And we'll just make it like a little bit bigger right here. Let's make it a little bigger, and I'll drag my photo over slightly. And obviously you can just click things and move them around accordingly. Just make sure that you have this right here, the drag tool and the move tool selected. So I'm going to move it like right here, and I'll make this a little bit lower, okay? So travel photography. Now I'm going to select this. I'm going to copy it by clicking Control C. You can also right click and copy as well if you want to do that way. And I'm going to paste it by clicking Control V. So Control C, Control C, Control V, and then it's going to paste that, and because I want the same formatting, and I'm going to say made simple, okay? So I'm just adding text here. That's pretty self-explanatory. You can obviously hit the text over here and change the font of the text if you want to go that way. And the way that you can do that is basically over here with your characters, change the font, change the weight, change the size, change the color. Pretty commonsensical right here. That's how you're going to adjust that. Now I'm going to drag this right here. I'm going to add 2 different boxes around these, because like I said, I want to add boxes in the background so that it makes it really, really easy to see. Now, if you don't want to do that, you can simply right click on the text, and same thing as before, right? You can go to the blend blending options, and you can add like a drop shadow or an outer glow or something like that. Sometimes that looks good on certain backgrounds. I don't always do that. Now, obviously, it's going to depend on the color of the outer glow that you choose. So if you click outer glow, like I said, you can adjust the noise and make it bigger. Like I said, once you click on it, you can also adjust like the size and the spread of that. So I'm going to undo that and undo that because I don't want to move that. But if you wanted to change the color here, then you could go to like red, right? Boom, now it's red. If you want to make it yellow, if you want to make it red, if you want to make it light blue, you get the picture, right? I don't think that that looks very, very good, so I don't do that on most things. I don't outer glow my text, and I don't add drop shadow on my text, although you can add drop shadow and outer glow if you want to go that route and you don't want to add the boxes. So I'm going to cancel this. What I actually like to do a lot of times is I'll move this down slightly, is I like to add a box, and a background rectangle to the text so it's clear to see and it brings it to life, okay? Now, I also recommend keeping the text in your thumbnails super minimal, okay? You don't want to have like a long sentence or a paragraph. I see this all the time, and I've made this mistake countless times as well, right? I've found that if you keep the thumbnail text super minimal, maybe 3 to 7 words max, okay? Preferably on the lower side of that towards 3 or 4, right? You can see there's literally 4 words here on this one. Okay, you want the text to be super easy to read and get right to the point, because remember, people are scanning images quickly, especially thumbnails. So sometimes I'll also add a logo too if that's relevant, especially in course thumbnails specifically. I also recommend that you add a shadow effect to this too if you do add it. And sometimes it looks good if you also add, color light effects to it as well, like I showed you previously. But I don't always do that on the logo or the text. What I like to do is I'll make a box. So I'm going to go up to the rectangular marquee tool, and I'm going to hit that, and I'm just going to draw a simple rectangle around the box. Now, sometimes I'll draw a big rectangle, and sometimes I'll draw like a super close rectangle. I've played around with both of them, and it really kind of just depends on the way that the thumbnail looks. Sometimes I'll get like, in a kind of a groove of doing a big one. Sometimes I'll get kind of in a groove of doing a small one. This is probably a little too close, so I'm going to do another one just a little bit bigger right here, and we're going to make that box. Okay, now that we've drawn the rectangle around it, we want to cut that out and turn the background black or white, depending on what color you have the text. I like going to the white text. You don't have to do that, although I think it makes it look really good. So I'm going to right click on that in between that rectangle, and I'm going to click new layer to make this a new layer. You can name the new layer rectangle 1, 2, whatever you want. I'm just going to keep it as layer 2. I'm going to click OK. Then I'm also going to right click again, and I'm going to fill it this time with a black coloring. Okay, now you can add a color. You can also turn it white or 50% gray. I like to keep it black, darkened, and 100% opacity, so that it turns it black, okay? But now I need to come over on the timeline here, and I need to, adjust that, okay? So I'm gonna move the layers up above this. So I need the travel photography and made simple above that. And now you see that the text comes in front of that. So I'm gonna click off of this now, and I'm gonna draw another one really fast right around made simple. And the same thing, right click, new layer, okay, right click, right click, fill, add it black, and then same thing. Now I'm gonna click off of it, and now I'm gonna go back to the move tool so I can adjust things. Now you might be saying that doesn't look that great, but what I like to do obviously is I'm gonna click on those layers right here, and I'm gonna go layer 3, which is the black, and layer 2, which is the black rectangle, and I'm gonna go to the blending adjustments. And I'm not gonna add the outer glow or the drop shadow to the text made simple or travel photography. I'm going to add it to the background, rectangle, because I think that makes it look a lot better. So I'm going to add outer glow, and I'm going to add drop shadow, and I think that that's going to look great, okay? So you can also play around with the color too. Like if I go back in and I right click and I select that again and go to blending options, and I go to the outer glow and I click on that, just like I showed you before, you can obviously adjust the color, right? So you might think like, okay, let's try pink. That looks okay, but it looks a little strange. You can also go like light blue a little bit. That kind of looks pretty good. I kind of like that actually. And then same thing with this one. I'm gonna go to the right here, layer 2, blending adjustments. And now it should have that same thing formatted. So I'm gonna click outer glow and drop shadow, and bam, hit OK. And now we have some popping text on it with a background that's clearly in front of the image. Same thing with me with the personal brand. You can obviously select these if you want to select everything and then drag them around as you want. Just make sure that you like drag select. You don't just click one or it'll just drag that actual thing. So I'm gonna click out of this. I'm gonna undo that so it looks like that. And we'll move on to the final step in the process. Now, another little bonus tip that might help you, doesn't really apply to this thumbnail specifically because I've kind of spaced it out correctly, is that you can drag layers around to give them precedent on your timeline. If, for example, you want to put something directly in front of the other, right? Then you just want to simply export your picture when you're done, right? But this is the timeline to recap over here. So for example, like let's say I had something in the background over here and I wanted to, maybe put myself, over here in the corner or like down here, right on the edge. I wouldn't, but just for example, right? If I wanted to drag myself and add precedent, then I could literally drag layer one, which is me when I'm selected, in front of the text because obviously the top of the timeline takes precedent, right? So if I drag myself in front of that, then obviously I'm going to be in front of the text and vice versa, right? If I drag myself below made simple right here, then obviously I'm in front of the text, but not in front of the text's background, okay? So you can use that to your advantage. Obviously, I don't really want to do that. I'm going to drag this all the way down and move myself back over here, like right about here, because I think that looks good. But that's just another tool that you can use. Always remember that you can drag, your layers or whatever's over here in your timeline. This is just where it kind of collects all your different, layers and different things that you have in your photo. You can move them around so that they take precedent. Remember, top is in the front and bottom is in the back, okay? And then you want to simply export/save your photo, right? So you're going to click File, you're going to save your photo. And what I always like to do, another little bonus tip, is I'll save it as a JPEG, and sometimes I'll save it as a PNG, although a PNG file can be a little bit more space on your drive, so keep that in mind. So let's just save it as a JPEG right now. But another little bonus tip that I like to kind of, suggest to people is always save it as keywords, right? Now, this isn't going to relatively matter a lot on most things, but if you're on like a course platform or if you're on like a search engine like YouTube, right? I could save this as like thumbnail picture, right? Or I could save this as, travel photography made simple for new, photographers. Thumbnail for something else, right? And because I'm saving it as that, it's just going to give me a little bump compared to other videos that aren't doing this in their actual, what their actual metadata is saved for their thumbnail. So it's just like a tip to keep that in mind, and then you're simply going to hit save. And that little tip is literally going to take you about 5 extra seconds to type something out, but it could bring you a lot of extra evergreen traffic over the long term, okay? So hit OK, and then you'll be able to see your picture and the final product in your actual downloads, right? So if we click this, this is what the final product of our thumbnail looks like, okay? Now, this clearly right here, because it was just kind of going through a quick example and I took a bunch, just as an example for this course, isn't the most, like the thumbnail's great, or the background of the thumbnail's great, the text is great, but this isn't like the most focused picture of me because I was taking it quickly. Obviously, you're going to want to make, spend a little bit more time. I'm just trying to give you an example of how you could go about doing that. But that's pretty much how you're going to do it super, super quickly. It's a simple 4-step process that you can do literally, you can replicate it over and over again, but you can do this literally in like a minute or two once you get good at it. All right, so quick Canva tutorial for those of you that decide to go the Canva route. Now, here on Canva, it's 100% free if you don't want to grab Photoshop and Lightroom. I would recommend that you do, though. Now, if you're on Canva, what you can do is you can create a design, or you can simply go to one of the designs that they have pre-templates down here. So like YouTube channel art, obviously like Instagram posts. And if you scroll over enough, there's going to be a YouTube one somewhere, or YouTube thumbnail right there. Or you can simply create a design if you want to add your own custom dimensions in, and then obviously type the pixel ratio in there, right? So let's say, for example, that you wanted like, obviously like a 1920 by 1080 is your generic, thumbnail that fits most places and most sites. But like, for example, if you had to do like, I don't know, an IG story one or something that's like a little bit more different, you want to get the pixel ratio for that and then obviously type it in and create your new design. Now, I already showed you how to do that in Lightroom and Resize, but that's how you're going to do it with Canva, okay? So then you're going to create your new design. And same thing, right? So if we go up to uploads, they already have selected thumbnails or photos in here and elements, some text and some stuff that you can add for backgrounds. Now you can obviously add a background layer here if you want. You can also fill it with a background color, or you can add a picture just like I showed you with Lightroom, okay? So we already have that picture from our downloads that I showed you before. So we're gonna upload an image into our photo. And keep in mind too that now because we created those custom dimensions for 1920 by 1080, we have the actual thumbnail already sized that we can just drag out to our pixel ratio. So if we go to downloads really fast, here's the original photo that we grabbed. And here's the one that we updated in Lightroom. So we want to grab the original one so I can show you how this looks, okay? And then once it finally uploads, I'm going to select it and drag it in here and then resize it a little bit and drag it out. Now, one of the things that I don't like about Canva, which is another reason I suggest using Lightroom and Photoshop, is when you drag it, sometimes because this is a free software, it distorts the image quality a little bit. So when I drag this out, every once in a while it does that. Doesn't do it every time in my experience, and I don't use Canva that much. But every once in a while it does distort the image quality that you're going to see. So there we go. Same thing roughly. I'm going to, if we double click it and we drag it over a little bit, because that looks like it's where the focus is on that picture, and we hit OK. There we go. So now we have a 1920 by 1080, same rough background image, but we need to brighten it, okay? So if we select the picture now, right, and you click on the actual image and you come up here to adjust, then you can obviously drag the contrast, same thing as Lightroom. It's not going to be as good, but it still will do its job. And remember, this is free. You can also adjust the saturation a little bit as well. And you can also tint it or, increase or decrease the brightness as you see fit, obviously depending on whether it's a bright or a dark photo, okay? You can also play around with the other ones, but the only ones that I've ever really used, I touched with tint a little bit, although I don't really recommend that you do that. It can look good on some pictures, but, like I said, use it sparingly or it's gonna look too cartoonish. Really, all you really need to know is brightness is there if you need it, contrast and saturation, just like in Lightroom. Although one of the things that isn't in Lightroom is the actual, you're not gonna have the vibrance option, okay? So let's say that we wanna just adjust the contrast a little bit. It's probably a little too much, and maybe the saturation just slightly, and then we're gonna hit enter, and that should, drag that. Now, same thing here with the text. You can add some text, and they have some text designs kind of loaded in here. You can also create text and then adjust the font up here and the sizing. So if we want to do for example, travel photography, and then made simple. And then we drag that up. And we can also adjust like I said, you can switch the font here. Some of them are paid fonts, but there's a lot of free ones as well. You can adjust the color of that. You can also adjust the sizing. You can bring it to life with an actual, if you go over to elements, again, you can bring it to life with a rectangle in the background. It's not going to look the same as obviously a Photoshop one will, but it's just something that you can, keep in mind. And then if you needed to position this, you could hit position and then backward and then do it like that, right? So like I said, this is not ideal, but if you're looking for something free, this technique can obviously help you with that. So I'm going to X out of this, and I'm just going to add this up here. And then obviously if I wanted to, I could bring my own picture in as well, just to kind of give you some reference. Go to important pictures, cut out to me. Let's add the suit one here. And bam, right? So this is something that you can use if you elect to go this route. Like I'd recommend, you can't obviously add like a shadow. You can't add the same effects. It's not going to look the same, but it is a good free option for those of you that want to go this route, right out of the gate. All right, so let me walk you through how to use Canva if you do elect to go this route. Now, one of the benefits of Canva is obviously that it's free, right? But it doesn't come with a lot of the features that Premiere Pro has, obviously. Not Premiere Pro. I'm looking at Premiere Pro right next to Photoshop. It doesn't come with a lot of the features that Adobe Photoshop has, obviously, as well as Lightroom, which is something that you're going to get when you grab the Photoshop bundle. So I'd recommend that you go this route because there's a lot more functionality, and your thumbnails are going to be, regardless of whether you're creating courses, whether you're just doing YouTube videos, are one of the things that are going to really get the click and grab eye attention in a competitive, place. So it's really, really, really understated that you need to be good at thumbnails, okay? That said, if you're just starting out and you don't want to master thumbnails and you don't want to pay for a software, I totally get it. I've been there before myself, okay? So let me run you through a quick tutorial on how to use Canva. It's pretty self-explanatory. It's pretty easy to use, and it's drag and drop, so anybody can use it and pick it up pretty fast. But let me just run you through a tutorial of how to actually, what it looks like. Here we are on my account. It's 100% free. You can sign up today and use it 100% free and all the features. You can create designs, use their specific, dimensions for certain things, and then also create custom designs, okay? So to create a custom design, what you're gonna do, just to kind of show you right here, is if you click Create Design, it's gonna allow you to either create the design for something specific, right? So if you know specifically you're interested in creating a cover for your Facebook page, well, there you go. There's the exact pixel ratio that currently Facebook covers are. So you just click that, and then okay, that's gonna take you to a Facebook cover, okay? And it's gonna take you to the exact dimensions, okay? Now, before, when in the very beginning, when I actually said, and there's an example for YouTube thumbnail that's very related, so 1280 by 720p is what's typically recommended for YouTube thumbnails. Now there's also, I believe it's 1920 by 1080p is the bigger one. So keep that in mind now, but just understand that that's, the general dimensions. Okay. Now there is one here that says YouTube thumbnail or YouTube channel art, which is something that I recommended. There it is right there. YouTube channel art. Okay. So let me just click on Instagram story as well as YouTube channel art to show you the different, nuances of how these actually look. And we'll go with Instagram post as well. So you click on Instagram post, you see, okay, it literally comes up with the shape of the Instagram post. And then I can add a picture, and you can see I still use this from time to time to, reshape some of my own thumbnails. You can add a picture in here and then kind of drag it out to fit that actual thumbnail, right? Or that actual thing. Now you'll see that I crafted this thumbnail right here for YouTube, and it doesn't actually fit this template right here. So when you're creating and crafting something yourself, you can either resize or you can create in actual Canva like I'm gonna show you, okay? But then when you download it, it's gonna be those exact dimensions. So let me download, and then I'll show you. And one of the things that's also going to help you is when you're downloading your files to grab them, you can save your metadata, which is going to help you rank a little bit better on YouTube or whatever platform you're using this thumbnail on, okay? So just going to add a little boost to your video because you'll see obviously it says untitled. So if I click this, you're going to see it pop up with literally the same dimensions for an Instagram post. So there you go, Instagram post, okay? Now let's X out of this one. Here we are with the example of the YouTube channel art. So for those of you in the very beginning when I went through the setting up your YouTube channel walkthrough, if you need to know how to set up your own YouTube channel art, this is how you do it, right? You go to the YouTube channel art template on Canva for free. You can obviously use one of their templates right here and then just literally, if you wanted to use this one, you'd get the background. You can change the wording here. You just click in it and type whatever you want. Example of my channel, whatever you want to do, right? Drag it a little bit out, drag it a little bit in. Everything's drag and drop here. It's super easy to use. You can also center, you can bold it, you can change the size, you can change the font. There's a number of different things. And also with a background too, you can add effects. So keep that in mind too. You can add effects to it. There's a lot that you can do for free software. Don't get me wrong. Now, if you didn't have this and you just had a background, so let's go to I don't know, a red background, right? Now, it's a horrible example. It looks terrible, but just roll with me here. I just want to show you different features. So it's really easy to use. It's just drag and drop. You can kind of, obviously upload your own pictures into Canva right here by uploading an image from something you downloaded. And again, what I usually recommend is going to a stock site like Pexels or Pixabay, or there's a number of them out there. You can also just go to Google and search for an image specifically and download an image there. Although just understand that it might come with potential copyright issues eventually. So I don't recommend doing that, although I do still do it myself from time to time. If you want a background of an image, just kind of upload in there and put as your background, and then you can build text around it and create a thumbnail that way. Also a great way to do it. You can also overlay logos like you'll see I did here with the YouTube logo, the Amazon logo. This is all built in Photoshop, and then I just, resize them here for my Instagram thumbnails. So that's just a way that you can kind of use the free software on Canva. There's, play around with it, spend maybe 15, 20 minutes. It's not hard to master at all. There's obviously elements here, different shapes that you can add, different, things like that. It's very easy to master. It's not difficult, and you can spend 15, 20 minutes and you'll be able to get this down. Okay. Now on the homepage, just to kind of recap before we end this, if you are interested in creating a specific design, and none of these templates actually fit as you're scrolling, right? You're not interested in creating anything like this. Maybe you have a specific website that needs a specific pixel ratio or a specific aspect ratio that you need to create something with. Then you want to go up to create a design and then custom dimensions, okay? And then if the website's telling you like, hey, you need like a 720 by like 660, pixel ratio picture, then you just literally type that in, 720 by 660, okay? And then you create your new design and it's gonna pop up with those exact dimensions, okay? So that's important to keep in mind. Canva is very, very easy to kind of master once you're starting it, but I just wanted to kind of walk you through an easy to learn and easy to understand and let you kind of level with you, be like, Canva, I'm not a master of it because I don't necessarily use it. I used Photoshop and Lightroom and I just resize images with Canva a lot of times. But anybody can learn Canva in about 15, 20 minutes, and it doesn't take a lot. It's literally drag and drop, right? You upload a picture, you drag it out, drop some text there, type it out, download your thumbnail, save it with the specific metadata, and bam, you've got your own thumbnail custom made just to how you like it. So use Canva if you're not interested in Photoshop or Lightroom, but obviously I'd recommend that you use Photoshop and Lightroom.